So, a very warm welcome to everybody. So, anyway, the Electric Bike Show is brought to you by Transition Town Lewes. My name's Julia, and my co-host is Tim. Tim is going to introduce the topic of electric bikes and briefly explain what they're about. We obviously can't cover every bike available, so we've concentrated on the main options, which are new, converting your existing bike, and we're also going to talk about cargo bikes. We have about 7 local owners on the call who will tell you a bit about their bikes and their experiences with them. We'll talk to those with new bikes first, then go on to converted bikes, and finally say something about using bikes for cargo. So that's me done. Over to you, Tim, please.
Yes, hello everybody. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction to electric bikes. Just to answer Christine's question in the chat box, the recording will be available on YouTube a few days after this. So we'll put a link up on the website, on the Transition Town website, for anyone to watch after that. Also, if you want to ask questions during the session, just go down to the bottom where you see the little speech bubble where it says chat, open up the chat box and type in a question. And then between Julia and myself, we'll get those questions asked to the presenters. So electric bikes, you might be surprised to know, have been around a very long time. And the first patent for an electric bike was actually registered in 1895. And then in the 1930s, they were popularized a bit, and people started using them more widely. The definition of electric bike for today's standards is when you get assistance with your pedaling. So if you were to sit on the bike and turn it on and move and you didn't pedal, that would be called an electric motorcycle. Whereas an electric bike, strictly speaking, is when you pedal, you get some kind of assistance. And so that's really what we'll be talking about tonight. As Julia said, there's kind of different categories. There's, mountain bikes, hybrid bikes, folding bikes. Basically, all the bikes that you're used to are now assisted. And I just looked up before coming on here. The cheapest one I could find was between kind of £500 or £600 new. So that won't get you top of the range performance, maybe in terms of distance and how far you can travel. But, a good bike these days of a non-electric kind being £500 or £600. So, to get the cheapest electric ones is not completely crazy money. Of course, you can go up the range and start to spend thousands of pounds on electric bikes, and with the conversions, they're typically between £600 and £800 to get your bike, the one that you have already, converted to electric. So it's something that's quite affordable nowadays. So I'm going to stop waffling on, and we're going to go to our first I was going to say contestant, but that wouldn't be right. Our first presenter, and hopefully everyone can see that. A new bike section is Mr. John Gunson.
Hello, Julia.
You've got a nice new bike. Well,
I have. Let me just, as I was requested, briefly demonstrate my cycling helmet. Which,
thank you, John.
Yeah. Kicks off arrows and all sorts of things. Yes, I've got a new bike, except it's a second-hand bike. It was about 2 years old when I got it.
Okay. And what do you use it mainly for, John?
Mainly for going to and from work and for doing shopping. But I can do the weekly shop on it now. I've managed to fit some panniers to it.
You haven't got panniers yet, then?
No, I have got panniers, but they took some fitting because it's a mountain bike, and it didn't have the right sort of forks to fit a pannier to. So I had to get a mechanic friend to do a bit of tinkering.
Okay. So where did you buy it? Did you buy it just from an advert? Oh, we've got some details.
Same place from Dom, who's coming up later.
Mm.
I bought it from Jerry, the sports car dealer on Ham Lane.
Oh, yeah.
He imported some French bikes, and I bought the one that he'd been cycling around on because it was a bit cheaper that way.
Right, so these are French. Have you had any problems with it since you've got it?
None that I could blame the bike for, no. I started at the age of 65, and that meant it was approximately half a century since the last time I'd ridden a bicycle any distance. And it was an interesting challenge to start with, but very enjoyable when I got into it.
And you use it just about every day, don't you, to go to work?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And it's changed your life, and you've ditched your car, haven't you?
Scrapped the car about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's changed my life, and it's saved me about £1,500 a year. Took about an inch off my waistline, and made my journey to and from work a lot more enjoyable, a lot more relaxing. You're not in traffic all the time.
Great. Okay. We can see what you paid for it. Okay. I don't know if anybody's got any particular questions on that. Right. People are saying they can't hear you very well.
Okay.
Yeah, well, anyway, you're done now. Oh, where does John travel from? Jan asks. John works at Wyvale, well, what used to be Wyvale. So how far is that?
About 2 miles by the cycle tracks.
Yeah, 2 miles there and back, yeah. In all weathers.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Given the right clothing, the weather is not a problem.
Right. When recharging the bike, is there an option for 240 volt or 120 volt?
Not that I'm aware of. I just plug it into our homegrown 240.
You just plug it into the home thing, so you don't know. Okay. Can we move on to Tim next? Tim's going to talk about his bike himself. Yes.
So I've got a Dutch bike, pronounced Van Moof, if you want to be correct. Most people just say Van Moof. I guess one of the reasons I liked this one, well, there are lots of reasons I like this one, is as you can see from the frame, is you can't really see there's a battery. So mostly people don't even realize that it's an electric bike. And I quite like that from a security point of view, because, people don't necessarily want to steal it. But on the subject of security, you'll see there's a picture of an app there, mobile app. And the bike itself has a GPS tracker in it. So I can go on my app and see where my bike is at any time. And they also do a bike tracking service. And I think they're the only ones in the world that do this, the one that I've heard of. So if your bike is stolen, they will dispatch a couple of people to track your bike and return it to you. So this is a paid service. You pay something like, I don't know, 60 or 70 pounds a year for that. I did take up the service when I first got it, but that was just a little bit before lockdown, and I haven't used it much in lockdown, so that was kind of wasted money for the last year. But I imagine if you lived in a busy town, then knowing that someone could potentially retrieve your bike for you would be a great comfort. Some of the other things I like about it are all the lights are built into it, and on the left hand, the top right hand picture where you see the handlebars, you'll see it's very kind of minimal in terms of buttons or what is there. So the left hand arrow, that is the boost button. So when I'm going along and I need to go uphill or I need to overtake someone, I hit the boost button and it gives you a little kind of extra jolt of power, which is really good. And the display is actually built into the frame. So if you see between the handlebars, there's the frame with the 2 white lines. That is where the display is, that tells you how fast you're going and what the battery consumption is. You can't see it now because it's not currently turned on in that photo. So all kinds of very well thought out.
Where's the battery, Tim? We're all curious.
It's in the frame. It's built
in the diagonal.
Yeah, in the diagonal of the frame. So the one downside is that if you don't have much space, you can't take the battery off, take it inside, and then charge it. You have to take the whole bike wherever you're going to charge it. So what I do is I'm lucky enough to have a little corridor in my house, so I just pull it into the corridor and plug it in. But I imagine if you lived in a town and you were in an apartment block or something, then maybe that wouldn't work.
Can we have the next slide, Tim, please?
Sure.
I'm getting some questions. Can it have a carrier? Because it's a mountain bike, isn't it?
No, it's a town bike. So yes, you can buy the accessory that goes on the back to have panniers.
Okay. And the cost was, well, now we've got that up.
Well, they've got an S3 now, which is the latest model, and they brought the price down. So 1,800 is the cost of a new S3. So,
okay. And how heavy is it? Because this is one of the issues, is that the batteries on bikes, on electric bikes, are quite often the same weight as the actual bike itself. So when you add the two together, they're really heavy.
So typically the bikes, electric bikes, are made of aluminium frames, which are very light, but this isn't a light bike by any means. The battery is quite heavy, but once you've turned it on and you're moving, you don't notice that heaviness.
No, but it's if you're lifting, because I think,
you wouldn't just pick it up easily and hoik it into a car or something. It'd be,
okay,
something you need to work at. For me, I use it to go to the station. So when I'm commuting, like John, we got rid of one of our cars and we replaced it with an electric bike. I would say I've saved many hundreds of pounds a year doing that. And I'm also fortunate enough to have solar power or solar panels. So when I'm charging up, I'm using the solar panels if I can.
Right, somebody's just put in the chat box that the weight is 21.3 kilograms. They just did a test ride.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, thanks, Tim. Is that
okay?
Is that it for the moment?
Yeah, I think I've discussed everything there.
Okay. Dom. Hi, Dom. Where?
Hi.
Would you?
Yes.
Yours is also a new bike, but it's slightly different in that it's a folding bike, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a folding version made by the same maker as John's, the French firm Sun City. Of course, all Sun City cyclists have to have an eccentric helmet. So I brought mine.
There is something about you.
This is an extra. But anyway, the great advantage, I would say, about having a folding bike is that you can contemplate using it and then taking a car journey, for example, where you fold it, or take it on a train. It's really an urban version. It folds more or less the handlebar column that folds, and then there's another one on the lateral crossbar, and it's not as compact as one knows from a Brompton conventional bike, and it's very heavy. I mean, it probably weighs more than 21 kilos. I should think about 25. It has a detachable battery, 5 hours charging time from empty. I've cycled to Newark and back from Lewes. That's the maximum it would do in all weathers. It's quite hardy. I mean, I've used it on the South Downs Way. So in spite of being an urban bike, it's just about rideable on a well-made track in the country.
But the batteries on the handlebars there, is it?
No, the battery's actually behind the seat column.
Oh, right. Yes, I see.
It's a larger battery than the Van Moof that you saw. It's a detachable battery. That makes it really easy to, if you're contemplating, for example, going around a city and you want to go make a lot of small journeys which end up being, maybe you stay overnight or something, you can take the battery into different venues and ask to charge it up much as you might with a mobile phone. There's another advantage. It has a little USB, so you can power speakers or lights. You may stop and have a picnic and want, you know, a little detachable.
Charge your phone even.
Yeah, your phone, you can charge your phone on it.
Mm.
And I envisage that in the future, the detachable solar panels that you can get on a backpack might actually keep a battery charged up, so you wouldn't actually have to stop, as long as, of course, it was sunny.
Okay, and you got it from the
This also came from the car dealers, Jerry in Ham Lane, Lewes.
Are they still doing them? Still doing?
Well, Jerry's actually sold his business now.
Oh,
And I don't know if that continues. That would be a pity, because he was the sole dealer for these very well engineered bikes.
Okay, well, in this area, well, we don't. Yeah, we don't. I don't know where else. There was actually a query just now. Where's the nearest outlet for the Van Moofs? Tim.
Oh, sorry, I did reply to that, but I mistakenly sent it to iPad 2 instead of everyone. There is a showroom in Covent Garden.
Oh, right. Okay. And we don't know about Sun City, do we? So, okay.
I mean, Sun City are based in the south of France, but they've now got outlets all over.
Right. Okay.
They're incredibly popular over there.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Don.
Thank you.
Well, we're now going to move on to the converted bikes. So we've got, we've got 3 people online, and I'm just going to report on somebody who was going to be online, but unfortunately can't be with us, who also had a conversion. So they're slightly different. 2 are similar, but one's very, well, actually 2 are similar and the other 2 are similar. Sorry. Anyway, tell us about your bike. You've got an ordinary road bike, yeah? Which you...
Yes, that I was very fond of, and I, I was keen to have it changed rather than get a new one, and I couldn't get a new one at the time, a new electric. Last summer it was. I did it, and I have been enormously pleased with it. One of the things I like most is just it makes a journey into town, Lewes with the hills. I don't dread the coming back, and I can move ahead of traffic fast enough so that I don't stay in their way. So I feel it's enormously increased my enjoyment and confidence. Otherwise, it is fairly heavy, but I manage. It's not bad at all. I can get onto trains, although people tend to give me a push from behind when they see the white hair, I think. Yeah. But the one I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it has got all these converted bikes have detachable batteries, don't they? Am I right in saying that, folks?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, yeah. So that's good, because then you can take it inside. And I suppose that also means that it's not quite such a target for thieves, is it? If you're leaving, it just looks like an ordinary bike. Whereas if you've got one with a built-in battery that you can't take off if you're going somewhere, they're targeted, aren't they?
Yes, I am careful, and I tend to cover the battery with a horrible old plastic carrier bag, just to, I don't know, if it helps. The walk assist thing is useful as well, getting up steps occasionally in steep hills.
And this was done by Mr. Cycles in Seaford.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you were impressed with the job he did and the service you got?
Yes, I was really pleased. And there was an issue with the battery rattling at first. And there wasn't any other issue, really. So I didn't do anything about it for a while and put cardboard under it. But I've only taken it back a week or so ago. And they've put, it's much better. Put rubber and padded it up a bit.
Great.
So that's fine, yeah.
Thanks, Anne. Nikki? Hello, Nikki. Where are you? I've lost you on my screen. Hello. There you are. Hello, Nikki. So you actually haven't got this bike yet. This is what you're hoping to get, but it didn't actually arrive in time for this evening, did it? But
no, I mean, like, in fairness to Switch, I think they've had problems down the supply chain, and they've been really good. The customer service has been fantastic, and they've emailed me loads of times. So I think, reading between the lines, it could be Brexit, it could be the Suez problem at the minute, etc. It could be all sorts of things. So the picture that you can see there.
Yeah, just to say, Switch are a company, and you buy the kit online. Yeah,
that's right. You just go
then attached to your bike.
Yeah. So the picture here is me with my friend's bike, because I thought before this talk, I better actually try one rather than just talk off the top of my head. So she's not very tech savvy, but she said it was genuinely really easy to fit. And the battery itself, which I sort of took off and put on, is surprisingly light for a kind of rechargeable battery. Her bike, that bike that you can see there, and no offense to her, it's a bit of an old bone shaker, and the difference between when it's powered and when it's not is really extreme. And I tried it out in a day when there wasn't much charge in that battery, you can see, and it's got 4 options of different power levels, and I just went up to power 2, and it was almost too fast for a road. So it was really impressive and very exciting. So you know, and it sort of does this clever thing where it can kind of feel when you start pedaling, and it doesn't kick in immediately. It sort of kicks in after you've started pedaling. And I don't know if that's the same as lots of other electric bikes, but it kind of felt it felt really pleasant to ride, is what I'm trying to say.
Natural. Have we got a cost? Oh, thanks, Tim.
Yeah. So there's 2 versions of the battery. There's a slightly smaller range, but I've gone for the 30-mile range, which is 650.
And the one you were riding there in the picture is the
slightly smaller range. And off the top of my head, I think that's like 23 miles.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I kind of went for it because I couldn't afford a brand new bike. And also, like Anne, I really wanted to stick with my old bike. And I also thought, if I absolutely hate this, I can convert back to just my old boring bike without electric, and it not be a great big hue and cry. If I decide to do a U-turn, it's kind of fine.
I suppose one could always sell the conversion kit.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you, I suppose?
Yeah. I mean, having tried it, I don't think I'm going to do that. You had to prize me off her bike, even though it was a bit of a rubbish old bike. I just really enjoyed myself.
There's a question in the chat box here, which I think we might just take now. Says, with all these electric bikes, do you have to keep pedaling to motivate the bike, or will they power themselves? They will power themselves if you want to. Yeah, won't they?
I think some of them do. Like, off the top of my head, I think some of them do. I can say for a fact the Switch doesn't.
Oh,
neither does mine.
Oh, really? Now that's interesting.
Oh.
I tried one, and yeah, I mean, you could just turn the power on and so we need to find out from the others.
The same for me. It's if you're not pedaling, then it doesn't register the assistance. Like I said in the introduction, if it's going on its own, then it's an electric motorbike.
Well, also, it won't power you beyond a certain speed. You can go at 15 miles an hour. And if I go down the hills and go faster, it isn't then powering me. And if I needed to pedal again, it would wait till I'd slow down to 15 before it would give me any power.
They actually have limiters. By law, they have limiters in them, and I have heard of examples of people discovering actually how to hack the limiters and make them go faster, but I don't believe that's legal.
No, that's right.
That's probably so.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely.
And there are different speed allowances in different countries. Like you can go faster in the US than you can in Europe.
All right. Oh, okay. We might move on to Liz. Liz, are you?
Hi.
Oh, wait a minute. We haven't got your picture. Wait a minute. Oh, am I getting Tim?
I don't know, are you going to discuss this one or not?
All right, okay, yeah, I can just quickly talk about this one. So this is, I might as well just pop it in here because it's, right, this is another switch conversion. This is somebody who's had it for a little bit longer. This is Chris Yarrows and his wife's, he bought earlier this year. He swapped bikes with his wife because she was happy to ride his Ridgeback bike rather than buy a new one, but it's a bit heavy, so they decided on electrifying it. They had to order it in advance at a cost of £524, which is slightly less than you mentioned, Nikki. This included a new front wheel with its hub motor, the battery and control pack, which fits onto the handlebars, charger sensors and an optional manual throttle. He said, the kit comes with excellent instructions. Fixing was very easy. The hardest part being taking the tyre off and fitting it to my new front wheel. The whole conversion operation taking just over 2 hours. Use is very simple. One simple switch is on, selects the power setting and pedals off. The pedal sensor instructs the motor to deliver power according to your rate of pedaling, and the assistance is proportional to the power setting you've selected. The manual throttle can override the pedaling when an extra boost is required. Around the town, the lower power settings are fine, but for steeper hills such as Station Street, you need a higher setting. We've not flattened the battery yet, and a 50-kilometre range is claimed. Wow. Like all electric vehicles, the range will depend on the terrain and style of use, but we cycled from Lewes to the top of Firle Beacon and back via Ringmer with plenty of charge left in the battery, which takes about 2 hours to recharge. For security, the power pack comes with a convenient handle and unclips easily, and you may want to take it with you together with a small charger into the pub and ask if you can top it up while you're having a drink. The good features are an inexpensive way of converting your favourite bike to electric. The conversion adds only £11 to the weight, and overall the result is much lighter than most custom e-bikes. The drawbacks are few. The power pack could easily be stolen. It also gets in the way of most conventionally mounted front lights. Being supplied online, it's likely that bike shops will be unwilling to service it. And he gives us the website link, www.switchbike.com. So, which I thought was quite an interesting, so that gave a bit of an overview on the Switchbike. And then on to Liz, who's got a completely different kind of conversion, haven't you? This is well, you'd like to use the Latin sui generis. It's an own thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it was converted by some guys who, I think the guy runs a paragliding outfit in Firle, but somehow is into electric bikes, and his mate Dave sort of builds the battery, and then between them they did different things, but eventually you get this conversion. So the battery is removable. It's heavy still. The battery's really heavy, and the bike as a whole is quite heavy, and I struggle to get it
very heavy. I tried lifting it, and it's really heavy.
I mean, it's no heavier than a standard electric bike, but it's no lighter. And for me, it's a bit of a problem getting it up half a dozen steps to my house every time I use it. But apart from that, it's been great for cycling on the downs. And last weekend, I went up Firle Beacon and down and Bo Peep, and then back along the coach road to Lewes. And then the following day, I cycled out to Ditchling, to Blackbrook Woods and Plumpton and so on. So its range is really quite good. Obviously, it depends on the hills, and how steep the hills are. But overall, I think it's pretty good, really. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
And what was the cost, Liz?
It was a bit hard to say, because I think I paid almost £1,000, but they did put some extra bits on my bike because it was a very old Trek mountain bike that I'd had a long time that I loved. So they put new brakes and new forks, and you can see there's a rack on it to take panniers. Although how I'd ever lift it on and off anything with full panniers, God only knows, but I haven't tried that yet.
And Anne is asking, do you have walk assist?
Yes, I do. Which, yeah, it's useful, but it doesn't help me up the steps really, particularly.
Liz does a lot of steps up to her house. Yeah.
So I've got a plank that I keep by the gate, but you have to position the plank very centrally and get the bike, really line it up, and then press walk assist, and it does help. Definitely, it helps. And if I'm really knackered, that's what I have to do. But it all feels like a bit of a palaver, really. But apart from that, it's great. And I mean, it does go at speed as well. It can feel quite dangerous. You can really fly around the town.
Have you got any contact details for these guys, or would you just say get hold of the guys who run the paragliding?
Yeah, I mean, I have got contact details if anybody wants them. I don't know if I ought to check with him before I give them out, though. I mean, I would imagine he'd be quite keen, but perhaps I should just be sure.
Yeah. Well, check and let me know, and I can put it on.
His name is John Barrett, and he runs the paragliding thing in Phil. But if anybody does want to be in touch, ask Julia, and I'll check and give you his number.
Thanks, Liz.
They were very nice to deal with. So it's been good.
Well, that's just another option for people to another route,
Yeah. Right. But actually, Julia, I've got to go because I've got some friends who are still here. Right. Well, thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for coming along, Liz.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye. We're now talking about the cargo bikes. Now, first of all, we're going to start with John. Matt, sorry, you're going to have to wait a minute longer because John, he was going to talk about his bike in general as an electric bike, but I know he does use it, as you can see, for transporting things around. So, John, do you want to tell us what this is a conversion kit, yeah?
So this is the same conversion, I think, as Anne has got, and sorry, was that Liz just before?
Well, she'd had it done with somebody else, not Mr. Cycles.
It's the same Bafang conversion that Mr. Cycles does. And so, yeah, I mean, this is coming up as a cargo bike because I've attached a trailer to it, which the electric bike is quite happy to tow. I've not put big loads on it yet until today. I thought I'd better give it a go, and I put a 25 kilo load on it, and it was quite happy. I've no idea what this would do to the sort of range. It would probably reduce potential range by quite a lot. I mean, one of the things about these conversion kits is, Mr. Cycles only does a 36 volt. This is something we haven't got into, the techie stuff, and I'm not an expert on it. But if you are going to get a conversion, you really want to check it out, and you might be more interested for not a lot more money getting a 48 volt conversion. You want to read up about this stuff because it's a minefield. And I've had people say, why didn't you get the 48 volt conversion? It cost you another £100. And I'm beginning to agree, actually, for what I use it for.
So Mr. Cycles doesn't do the 48 volt?
They just do the one conversion. I can see it keeps it very simple for them. But I think, if you're thinking of a conversion, this is something to consider and talk to somebody who knows about the subject. Mr. Cycles are not great for having in-depth conversations with. They're very nice people. I've not found them particularly, what's the word? Engaging in the subject. It's not. It's an observation more rather than a criticism.
Well, so maybe my friend Liz is the paragliding guy. These are sort of techie geeks who just do it, themselves. They may well come up with something, a bit different. We don't know enough about it, I'm afraid, about what she had to be able to say.
I wonder if we've got any techie people on here, because these are.
So, what are the switch conversions? Are they how many volts are they? We don't know. Okay.
36 is very common.
No sound.
But 48 volts is not. You know, it's like it would have cost me about £100 more, except Mr. Cycles don't offer that service. But it's definitely do the homework if anybody's thinking of a conversion. Somebody who understands. There's lots of people who do. Bore you to tears with it, but it's worth checking out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what we're trying to do here is just give an overview of the sort of things that people have done and what they're happy with. So, yeah. Okay, John. Thank you. Right. So you haven't used your trailer that much.
I've got an allotment in Thurl, and one of the reasons I felt okay about getting an allotment in Thurl is because I've got an electric bike and a trailer. So that's very much part. So I carry light loads. The thought, would I be happy to maybe load it up with a load of camping gear, go off long distance? I don't know the answer to that yet.
Okay, and this is this conversion. Is the battery removable?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can take it off and recharge it inside, or for security purposes, take it off and go to the pub or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
My battery's quite noisy, actually. The recharger. I don't know. Anne, does yours make a lot of noise? Your Bafang? No. Interesting.
Okay. Thank you. Right. Well, we'll go on to Matt Bird, our district councillor, who's been involved in trying to get this e-cargo bike venture going. And I just thought it would be really interesting to hear how that's going and whether this is something for the future for Lewes. So thanks, Matt, for being here and missing the town meeting.
Yeah, I'm kind of keeping an eye on it, actually. and you'll be pleased. I mean, you're pretty close in numbers. They're just 20 ahead at the moment.
Oh, are they? So, okay. Well, I'm glad bikes. Yeah.
But considering this is a single issue, I think we're right up there.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for asking me along. And I think just a note on the conversions, because I looked into it quite a lot and spoke to quite a few people, and they said actually, it's a really good idea. The sort of the sort of bigger the bike, and a few people that had their prized sort of steel racing bikes actually ended up with them being snapped because there was sort of too much pressure put on the frames when they did the conversion. So I think thinking about the kind of bike you've got to start off with is quite important. But and I got an electric bike myself, mainly because I really like cycling, but I had quite a bad knee injury, and I was told that they were really good for sort of recovering, and it has been just incredible, So
is yours a conversion or a new bike?
It was a new bike. I got a really good deal from Cycle Shack just before lockdown, actually. And I think actually I've used it with the trailer as well, but mainly off road, and it's actually really helped the knee recovery, and it's made me ride my regular bikes more. So
is it a mountain bike then you've got?
It's not. It's kind of more a hybrid bike that I beefed up for off road.
Yeah, I just while you mentioned Cycle Shack, I mean that is the main bike shop in Lewes, to go and talk to them about if you want a new bike. I did actually ask if they could come on tonight, but I haven't heard back from them. So it's
yeah, and obviously in the bike world at the moment, I mean there's a big issue with supply, just of everything. It's a very good time to sort of be selling your secondhand bike parts. Because it's really quite difficult getting stuff. But yeah, I mean, I ran when I was working at a council before, I ran a staff e-bike scheme, and we only had four e-bikes, and I'd say probably 7 staff on the back of that ended up buying bikes. So I think it is a case of once somebody's tried it, they never really look back. They're just absolutely converted. But Yeah, I mean, to get on to the e-cargo bike proposal, it's something I've been looking at for quite a while, both in my job and as a counsellor, and we've been looking at the potential for e-bike hire. We've sort of commissioned some work on that, and we're just at the moment building a sustainable travel hub in New Haven, so just next to the train station there, and it's a lot of shipping containers. It'll be a sort of active travel centre and some e-bikes there, and for quite a while we've been thinking about last mile delivery. I've been involved with a few organisations just looking at schemes nationally, and in Brighton they've had a company called Zedify for quite a while, and they're really developed as a business, and their e-bikes now are almost like mini vans, and they're refrigerated and they're delivering all sorts of things. So and there's many different schemes around the country, from sort of quite informal things like recently, John's cargo bike, a group of riders got together with a food bank and delivered food, and to sort of really big, sort of quite corporate logistics delivery companies. So what we've been looking at is something in between, and looking at something. Well, initially we were looking at a scheme based in New Haven and Lewes, but not connected at the moment, because the C7 and the A26 are pretty horrendous to cycle along, and realizing that New Haven and Lewes have quite different needs. Apart from anything, I'm a different terrain, but also, there's a lot of sort of more sort of industrial estate companies in New Haven, and lots of potential for intercouriering. Whereas in Lewes, there's the high street, more independent shops, makers. So we were looking at, in terms of the actual delivery service, it would be different, but then also as a sort of social enterprise idea, so that we could have a bike library, provide bikes for events, for community groups, and a sort of try before you buy type approach. So what I have seen is that families have actually made the decision to ditch their cars, if they're in the right location, to ditch their cars in favor of a cargo bike. And given that some of the cargo bikes are £5,000, £6,000, it's quite a big decision, but nonetheless, quite a few people, increasing numbers, are starting to do that. But we thought, well, actually, for such a big decision, having a bike library, a try before you buy type scheme, where you could borrow it for a couple of weeks, would be quite good. So with all that in mind, at the council, we put together a bid submission with Avesco and the Sussex Community Development Association in New Haven to do something along those lines last year. It was sort of a frantic sort of 2-week window to get a bid in just before lockdown, and we weren't successful. So it was completely oversubscribed, and as usual, Brighton got some of the money, and we didn't. But it's sort of too good to just sort of wait until the next sort of funding round came around. So I've been working quite closely with Avesco in the meantime, and we've put in a couple of expressions of interest to the South Downs National Park and some other funding, and we've sort of had some good feedback to sort of work up a bigger bid. And also in the meantime, there's and I can't really go into too much detail, but there is a chance that there might be some funding available. So the idea is to, because obviously with cargo bikes, you need somewhere to store them, and to have a base. So we've been talking to Human Nature about the possibility of having some storage there, which we're in early talks. But
on the new development on North Street.
Exactly, and also to have something based in New Haven at the travel hub there. So I mean that's essentially what it is. I mean in terms of the bikes themselves, we're looking at sort of three types. One is, in the bottom right hand corner of that picture, you see the kind of the big load carrier in front. There's lots of variations on those types of bikes.
They must have huge batteries to.
Yeah, not really. I mean, some of them can carry 2 batteries, so you've always got a spare, but it is just about the range and the carrying capacity. But the thing about them is that they're not instinctively easy to ride. You do need a bit of training. So we have
the balance.
Yeah, exactly. The maneuverability, the balance.
Much better with 2 little wheels, like that. 2 wheels at the back or something would be easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of variations on them. Whether it's 3-wheeled or 2-wheeled, but with a bit of training, it's not too bad. But that would be for the sort of bigger, bulkier deliveries. But then these other ones, which are really exciting, the orange ones, they're Turn GSDs. So they've kind of got smaller wheels. There are a couple around Lewes that I've seen, and they're just very easy to ride, and they've got a massive following and a surprisingly huge carrying capacity. I mean, I've seen people carrying furniture on the back of them, sort of. So I've seen somebody with a sofa on the back of one. I mean, they're absolutely incredible. And then the other one, along the lines that John's mentioned, is with a trailer and an e-bike. And the beauty of that is it just does give you options, and it's quite easy for most people to ride. And I suppose the last thing to say is that because we're looking at this as a social venture as well, it's to, we want to work with volunteers and provide that opportunity for, as it expands, for employability. So, we've been talking to Lewes community volunteers and other community organisations to kind of get involved with it. And then, I mean, the grand vision is to, have a viable alternative to all those diesel trucks driving around town, delivering food or My Hermes type things. And to maybe work with the supermarkets to do some local deliveries, and certainly the farmers markets and other markets as well.
Right. Well, you just thought maybe there would be somebody who would set it up as an actual enterprise rather than having to. Anyway.
Well, I'm sure somebody will do that if we don't do it soon. So the idea is that I mean it'd be relatively easy.
Matter who does it if somebody does it. So there's a.
Well, it does. I think it does matter. I think that's the thing. I think you could quite easily have a commercial operator move in, but they would just miss out all the community.
Sorry, okay. You want a community based.
I mean, I guess Deliveroo is the closest analogy, isn't it?
Yeah, and people like Uber, I think they run or they own the Brighton bike share, and what happened with e-bike hire and in London especially was, I mean, they were all run by Chinese operators and Chinese companies, and a lot of drug dealers used to use them to come down to Brighton and sort of cycle around Moulscombe, and then they'd dump them, and they just moved out of that market. So a lot of the e-bike hires schemes just failed completely.
It's interesting how those have failed. Yeah, I haven't really followed it. Well, thank you, Matt. That's whoa, that could be really exciting. Yeah, well, good luck with it.
Thank you.
No, and thanks for coming along, and do go and say your bit at the town meeting now.
That looks boring.
Yeah. Right. So, are there any more questions? Would anybody like to? I mean, I'm quite happy actually if people would just like to ask questions verbally rather than type them in the chat box, as long as they're short. I think my problem personally with the
Nikki's got her hand up.
Oh, right, Nikki, great. Yeah, go on.
I've got a really boring question, which is, John, what is your trailer? You're muted.
It's a cheap trailer. They're about £80. If you look on eBay or wherever, it's called something like Hom Hom or something.
Say that again, a bit louder.
Hom Hom.
Hom Hom.
Very similar to that, but if you look on eBay,
okay,
around the £80 mark.
Okay.
But it's the cheap ones. It's made out of steel. It will rust. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you want aluminium, which you can just leave in the rain and will last forever, well, in theory, you're £200 plus, and the aluminium would be a bit lighter.
I've got one of those as well.
Now you're just showing off.
Yeah, and the aluminium one, Dom.
Yes, I've got the same type as John's off eBay. It was meant to come with a sort of Oxford, what they call Oxford material, a waterproof material, which could come, but they didn't actually remember to include that, so I had to buy a tarpaulin. But I have transported my small terrier dog, and I'm contemplating getting a sort of goldfish bowl to insulate him from the weather, and cut a small hole in the tarpaulin, a bit like Snowy in one of the Tintin books.
There are child trailers, of course, which have got lots of protection.
Yeah.
For children.
Yes, well, I mean yes. I mean, we haven't got Sue on the call, but one of our transition colleagues, Sue, she's got one with a child trailer on the back with two, so the two can sit side by side. There's a picture of it on the Transition Town Lewes website if you look under e-bikes. But it looks great fun. I mean, they're great. All these trailers and things, you can get all these add-ons.
The thing about the trailer, so I went out with a good load on it today. You've got to be quite careful braking downhill. I put it into a skid, so that these are things you've got to sort of get used to. You stick 20 kilos plus a trailer on the back of your bike, it's quite a heavy weight, and it's pushing you. So yeah, stuff to look out for.
Yeah. But we had a question right early on, which I wrote down, but we didn't answer. Somebody asked John about his second-hand bike. Were you able to check how many miles it had done before you bought it? John Gumpson. You're muted, John. Hang on, let's unmute you. I don't know if you're on there. All right, sorry.
No, I got some idea it had been in use for about 2 years, but I've used it for a year. I think the battery is getting a bit soggy now, so I'm investigating getting a new one, which shouldn't be too difficult. But I will let you know what happens.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know how much a new battery is. Yes, and I don't suppose like electric car batteries do have a second life. They can be used in buildings, but I can't imagine the bike batteries would have a.
They can be refurbished, I understand.
All right.
But I haven't looked into that yet.
Well, laptop batteries can be refurbished, so I guess, but I don't. I mean, my laptop battery is a refurbished battery. It seems to be working, so I guess they can. Any other comments or thoughts? Yeah. Sorry, I can't. John H.
John H. Yes, thank you. There was a question. And I didn't get the speaker who was talking. I think it was one of the Sun City ones, where there's a USB socket on the battery housing, and I was just wondering whether that was also the charging point.
No, it isn't the charging point. It's a completely additional feature. The charging point socket is a sort of round socket,
Like a typical electric charge supply.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you. I was just wondering. That's good. Thank you.
All right. And you charge them just by plugging them into an ordinary socket, don't you? Yeah. You can't fast charge them like an electric car with a supercharger. No. But the electric bike I tried on a holiday, the more you pedal, did it charge the battery up again? Is that right? Am I wrong about this? Do they charge the battery up again?
No.
No?
No.
Oh.
I think it's partly, it would add a lot of weight to incorporate that and a lot of money. I'm sure in theory it could be done, but I don't think any e-bikes have a recharging ability like that, not that I'm aware of.
Right. Okay, thanks, Nikki, for being with us. Thank you. You had to go. Well, we're just about at 8:30. So, unless anybody's got anything else they'd like to raise, you're very welcome. The one thing I would like to mention, if you want a really fantastic guide with the pros and cons to electric bikes, I really recommend Travelodge Lewes. This guy, Chris Smith, he's done a really well-written and I think very readable and clear. I'm just going to put it in the, it's in the chat box, but do have a look at that if you want some guides about, more further to what we've been talking about this evening. As it's just about 8:30, I will.
And also, I'd just say before we go, I've just put in the Transition Town Lewes link in the chat box.
Okay, well, I'm going to put another one in, Tim.
Okay, go for it.
Okay.
And when we finish this show, the recording will be up on YouTube and then eventually onto the Transition Town website.
Yeah, we'll hopefully have that up earlyish next week. But I just want to say, obviously, thank you to everybody for coming and joining in. That was great. But just a couple of things. Do sign up for the Transition Town Lewes newsletter if you would like. We would very welcome you to have you on board. And if you've got any more questions, please email inquiries@transitiontownlewes.org, and we'll pass on and try and send your message to somebody who can answer it.
And donations are always welcome.
Yeah,
to make these shows possible.
Yeah, right. Yes, we hopefully will put some more of these on. So donations are. And I'm just going to put the donation link in the chat box. So there we are. There we are. I think it might need a backslash at the end of donate. But anyway, sorry about that. But anyway, so thank you all very much. And
thank you.
And we'll do some more of these sometime. Anyway, happy biking.
Mm-hmm.